The lawyer's voice cuts through the silence like a blade. For bringing shame to this family, my granddaughter Tessa Monroe shall receive nothing. My stomach drops. The room freezes except for my cousin's barely hidden smirk. My mother's hand tightens around her wine glass until her knuckles turn white. I don't know whether to stand up or disappear into the leather chair beneath me. Then I hear it. The sound of paper scraping across polished wood. The lawyer slides a second sealed envelope across the mahogany table. His eyes meet mine briefly. Per your grandfather's personal instruction, this is for you alone. To be opened in private. Everyone stares. I can feel their curiosity sharpening into something like panic. My father shifts in his seat. Marissa leans forward slightly, her perfect composure cracking just enough to show the calculation beneath. The envelope sits in front of me, cream-colored and heavy. My name written in my grandfather's familiar handwriting. What could possibly be inside? My name is Tessa Monroe, and apparently I'm the family disgrace. I'm 28 years old, the quiet one who worked too much and talked too little. The only grandchild who never quite belonged at my grandfather's perfect oak dinner table with its formal place settings and unspoken rules. I was the one who chose art school over business school, who wore comfortable clothes instead of designer labels, who asked uncomfortable questions instead of nodding politely. My grandfather, William Monroe, built a commercial real estate empire over 40 years. The Monroe name opened doors across the city. Everyone wanted his approval, his investment, his attention. I thought I knew him. Sunday dinners every month. Quiet conversations in his study while everyone else networked in the living room. He'd ask about my art projects, my ideas for community programs. I didn't know that one dinner, one moment of truth, would brand me as the person who embarrassed the family. The person who deserved nothing. It started at my grandfather's 80th birthday dinner 6 months ago. White tablecloths, string quartet playing softly in the corner. Everyone dressed perfectly, pretending to adore each other. The whole family gathered at his estate. My parents, my aunt and uncle, my cousin Marissa. Business partners, politicians, society people whose names I recognized from newspapers. Marissa stood to give a toast. She looked stunning in a designer dress, her blonde hair swept up elegantly. She was 26, beautiful, confident. Everything I wasn't. I want to announce something special, she said, smiling at our grandfather. I'm launching a charity foundation. Art workshops for underprivileged children. Giving them opportunities they wouldn't otherwise have. Everyone applauded. My grandfather beamed with pride. My heart stopped. That was my idea. My project. The proposal I'd shown him a year ago. The one I'd been developing in secret, saving money, planning every detail. I whispered, barely audible. You mean my idea? Marissa froze, then smiled. That poisonous kind of sweet that never reaches the eyes. I'm sorry, Tessa, what was that? The room went silent. Everyone turned to look at me. My voice came out stronger than I expected. That's my project. I showed grandfather the proposal last year. I have all the documentation. Marissa's face shifted into perfect wounded innocence. Tessa, I don't know what you're talking about. I've been planning this for months. My mother's hand touched my arm. A warning. Not here. But I couldn't stop. I have emails, sketches, budget proposals. All dated months before you ever mentioned this. My grandfather's face darkened. Enough, Tessa. His glass hit the table with a sharp crack. You've embarrassed this family for the last time. The words felt like a slap. Marissa's eyes glistened on cue, perfectly timed tears of hurt and betrayal. My mother whispered apologies to the guests around us. My father stared at his plate like I'd ceased to exist. I stood up, legs shaking. Walked out before dessert was served. Before I could say something I'd regret. But the damage was done. The whispers followed me out the door, through the marble foyer, into the cold night air. I'd told the truth, and the truth had made me the villain. The calls stopped after that dinner. Invitations to family events vanished. My mother's texts became short and cold. Even my parents distanced themselves. My mother called once, her voice tight. "Maybe you should apologize, Tess, for the scene, for upsetting your grandfather. Apologize for being right. Yes, for being the only one who saw through Marissa's lies." Silence. Then, "You've always been so difficult. Why couldn't you just let it go?" Because letting it go meant letting her win. Meant watching her take credit for something I'd poured my heart into. That night I packed my things. The apartment my parents helped pay for suddenly felt like a chain. I moved into a tiny studio across town. The kind with water stains on the ceiling and a radiator that clanked. No dramatic speech. No final confrontation. Just silence. The kind that cuts deeper than shouting. I blocked most of their numbers. Started over. Alone. Anger burned inside me for weeks. I wanted to scream, to expose Marissa's lies to everyone who'd believe me, to force my grandfather to see the truth. But I refused to let that anger rot me from the inside. Instead I wrote. I worked. I studied. Every sleepless night turned into planning. I pulled out every document I'd created for my original project. The budget spreadsheets. The curriculum plans. The partnership proposals. If Marissa wanted to steal my idea, fine. She could have the hollow version, the announcement without substance. I would build the real thing. My own non-profit arts foundation. Properly registered, professionally run, everything done right. It would take time and money I didn't have. But it would be mine. Truly mine. The anger transformed into something harder. Something focused. Purpose. I waited tables at a downtown restaurant. Tutored high school kids in art and English. Lived on oatmeal, ramen, and ambition. My studio apartment became my office. Plans covered the walls. I contacted every small grant foundation in the city. Applied for funding from community organizations. Pitched my idea to anyone who'd listen. Most said no. The Monroe name was too big, my resources too small. Why would they invest in me when Marissa's charity had family backing? But a few said maybe. A few wanted to see more. There's something pure about starting over when no one's watching. Every rejection letter became fuel. Every small win felt sacred. A $50 donation from a former art teacher. A promise of free studio space from a gallery owner who'd heard my story. I worked 16-hour days. Fell into bed exhausted. Woke up and did it again. No family money. No connections. Just work. For months after that disastrous dinner, I attended a local fundraiser. Small venue, modest crowd. I'd bought a cheap ticket, hoping to network with potential donors. That's when I saw her. Marissa. Standing near the bar in a designer dress, champagne glass in hand, surrounded by admirers. Her charity was the featured cause of the evening. She didn't recognize me at first. Or maybe pretended not to. I'd lost weight, cut my hair, wore clothes from thrift stores instead of department stores. I watched her work the room. That perfect smile. The rehearsed humility as people praised her vision. It came to me one night, she told a group of potential donors. This calling to uplift young artists who don't have the opportunities one had growing up. My hands clenched. But I didn't approach her. Didn't make a scene. Instead, I smiled for the first time that night. Not with anger but realization. I was watching her build her house on sand. Eventually the tide would come. I just had to be patient. Cracks started appearing by month 6. Marissa's charity was behind on required reports. Donors were asking questions about where their money was going. The workshops she'd promised hadn't materialized. The website showed stock photos instead of actual programs. A journalist named Claire reached out to me privately. She'd been investigating the charity for a story. During her research, she'd found my original project proposal, submitted to a grant foundation 2 years earlier. "This is your work, isn't it?" she asked over coffee. I showed her everything. The emails to my grandfather. The detailed curriculum plans. The timeline that proved my concept existed long before Marissa's announcement. "What do you want me to do with this?" Claire asked. "Nothing yet," I said. Just hold on to it. The truth has a way of surfacing when it's ready. She nodded, understanding. You're smarter than I expected. The truth was a tide. I didn't need to push it. I just needed to wait. 8 months after leaving my family, something shifted. I received a letter from a local arts foundation. Small grant, $5,000. Enough to rent a small studio space and hire 2 part-time teachers. I read the letter 3 times, hands shaking. We opened our doors on a Saturday morning in September. 6 kids showed up that first day. 6 kids from underprivileged neighborhoods who wanted to learn painting, sculpture, photography. I watched them work. Watched their faces light up when they created something beautiful. Watched them help each other, encourage each other. That afternoon, I cried alone in the storage closet. Not from sadness, but from relief. I'd built something from the ashes they'd left me in. Something real. Something mine. The kids didn't care about my last name or my family drama. They just wanted to create. That was enough. While I was building, Marissa's world was crumbling. Her charity's audit revealed serious problems. Missing documentation. Unexplained expenses. Programs that existed on paper but not in reality. Her engagement to a wealthy developer fell apart when his company got dragged into the investigation. Questions about donations, conflicts of interest, improper benefits. Suddenly, the family dinners weren't so public. The photos stopped appearing on social media. My grandfather's name was still respected, but his empire, starting to tarnish around the edges. I heard about it through mutual acquaintances, through carefully worded messages from people who'd once ignored me. I didn't gloat, didn't reach out, just kept working, kept building. Every new student who walked through our doors was my answer. Every successful workshop was my statement. I didn't need to say anything. The work spoke for itself. The phone call came on a Tuesday evening. My mother's voice, cold and mechanical. Your grandfather wants to see you. After 2 years of silence, I wasn't sure if it was reconciliation or another lecture. Another opportunity for him to tell me how I'd disappointed the family. Why? Yes. He's not well, Tessa. He's asking for you specifically. Almost said no. Almost told her it was too late, that he'd made his choice at that dinner table. But I went, because sometimes closure is the last act of rebellion. Sometimes you need to look someone in the eye one final time before walking away forever. I drove to his estate on a gray Saturday morning. My stomach knotted with tension. He looked smaller than I remembered, weaker, sitting in his leather chair in the study, afternoon light filtering through expensive curtains. But his eyes were still sharp, still assessing. You came, he said. You asked. He gestured to the chair across from him. I sat back straight, guard up. For a long moment he just looked at me. Then he spoke, his voice quieter than usual. I raised this family to value appearances, reputation, the Monroe name above everything else. He paused. And yet the one who kept her head down, who didn't fight for attention, seems to be the only one still standing. It wasn't an apology, but it was something. I saw the article, he continued, about your foundation, about what you're building. I stayed silent, waiting. I also saw the audit reports about Marissa's charity, the investigation, the missing funds. His jaw tightened. I made a mistake at that dinner. I chose appearance over truth. My grandfather asked questions after that, quiet ones, about my foundation, about how I'd funded it, about the kids we were helping. I answered carefully, not sure where this was going, not sure if I could trust this moment. He asked about Marissa's charity, about the accusations. I told him what I knew, the timeline of my original project, the evidence I'd shared with the journalist, though I didn't mention her name. He didn't say much after that, just nodded slowly, looking out the window at his perfectly maintained gardens. Finally he spoke again. I see more of your grandmother in you than I ever saw in your mother. She would have been proud of what you're building. My throat tightened. My grandmother had died when I was 15. She was the one who'd encouraged my art, who'd understood why I didn't fit the Monroe mold. "Thank you," I whispered. When I left that day, he walked me to the door himself, shook my hand formally, the way he did with business associates. I had no idea it would be the last time I saw him alive. The news came 2 weeks later. My grandfather had died peacefully in his sleep. Heart failure. He was 80 years old. The family group chat exploded with condolences that rang hollow. Perfectly worded messages of grief that felt rehearsed. I felt sadness, genuine sadness for the loss, but also something like peace. We'd had that final conversation, that moment of understanding. Then came the formal invitation, delivered by courier. The reading of the will. I almost didn't go. What was the point? He'd made his position clear at that dinner table 2 years ago. I'd embarrassed the family. I'd received nothing. But curiosity won. Or maybe stubbornness. I wanted to see them all one more time. Wanted to walk into that room with my head high, knowing I'd built something real without their help. I wore a simple black dress. No jewelry except my grandmother's bracelet. Drove to the lawyer's office downtown. They were all there. The entire family gathered in a conference room with leather chairs and mahogany furniture. All of them in black, mourning like a performance. My father nodded politely but avoided my gaze. My mother looked through me like I was a stranger. Marissa arrived late, making an entrance. Camera-ready tears, perfect makeup. She took her seat near the front, surrounded by sympathy and attention. I sat in the back, alone, exactly where I expected to be. The lawyer began reading. Standard legal language. The estate would be divided. The business holdings, the properties, the investments. My uncle received the commercial portfolio. My father received the residential properties. My mother received stocks and bonds. Marissa received a trust fund, $500,000. The room murmured approval. Then the lawyer's voice shifted slightly. Regarding Tessa Monroe, I braced myself. Here it came. The final humiliation. The public acknowledgement that I'd failed the family. Everyone turned to look at me. For bringing shame to this family, my granddaughter Tessa Monroe shall receive nothing from the general estate. The words sliced through me. Even expecting them, they hurt. I kept my face neutral, refusing to give them the satisfaction of seeing me break. Marissa's smirk was barely hidden. My mother looked away. Victory in the silence. Then the lawyer cleared his throat. Paper scraped across the table. However, Mr. Monroe left specific additional instructions. He slid a second envelope across the table toward me. Cream-colored, heavy paper. My name in my grandfather's handwriting. Per your grandfather's personal instruction, this is to be opened privately, not as part of the general reading. Everyone stared. The room shifted. I could feel their curiosity sharpening into panic. What could be in that envelope? Why would he leave me something separate? Something private? My father leaned forward slightly. Marissa's smile faltered. I reached out and took the envelope, feeling its weight in my hands. I didn't open it there. Didn't give them the satisfaction of watching my reaction. I stood up calmly, envelope in hand. "Thank you," I said to the lawyer. Then I walked out, leaving them whispering behind me. In my car, hands shaking, I finally opened it. Inside was a handwritten letter in my grandfather's careful script. "Tessa, I know the truth now. I saw the files you sent to that journalist. I saw your original proposals, the dates, the evidence. I saw what Marissa really is, and what you've built on your own. You were right to protect what's yours. You were right to stand up at that dinner, even though I was too proud to admit it then. I'm ashamed it took me so long to see clearly. Ashamed I chose appearance over integrity. You deserved better from me. This envelope contains the deeds to something that bears our name but belongs only to you." My hands trembled as I pulled out the legal documents beneath the letter. Property deeds. Not to his estate or his buildings. To the Monroe Foundation building. A 3-story structure downtown. currently leased to various non-profits, and a letter from his bank, trust fund, $2 million, converted into a permanent endowment for my foundation, legally mine, irrevocable. I sat in my car, reading the documents over and over. My grandfather had known. He'd investigated. He'd seen the truth. While everyone else schemed over inheritance, fighting for their share of his empire, he'd left me something better. Legacy, independence, truth. The Monroe Foundation building would give my organization a permanent home. The endowment would fund programs for decades. Kids who'd never have opportunities otherwise would have a chance because of this. Not because of his name, because of the work, because of what we were building together. He'd set it up months ago before his death. The lawyer's paperwork was dated 6 weeks earlier. He'd known he was dying and made sure this was protected from the will, from family challenges, from Marissa's manipulation. Separate gift, private acknowledgement, an apology in the only language he really understood. Action. I cried in my car for 20 minutes, not from sadness but from relief, from validation, from the weight of finally being seen. The news broke 3 days later. Monroe Family Charity under federal investigation for fraud. Claire, the journalist, had published her story. Anonymous documents showed the timeline of my original project proposal, dated 2 years before Marissa's announcement. Bank records proved donations had been misused. Programs promised to donors had never materialized. Marissa's face, once on magazine covers celebrating young philanthropists, now headlined scandal columns. The investigation expanded quickly. Her fiancé's company, my uncle's business dealings, connections between family money and the fraudulent charity. My phone exploded with messages. Reporters wanting statements. Family members trying to reach me. Marissa's number appeared repeatedly. Calls I didn't answer. I released a single statement through my foundation's lawyer. We're focused on our mission of providing art education to underserved youth. We have no comment on ongoing investigations. Professional, neutral, final. The Monroe family name, once so carefully protected, was now associated with scandal, and I was the only one still standing. 3 weeks later, my foundation received an invitation from the City Council. They wanted to partner with us, funding art programs for underprivileged schools across the district. The meeting was formal. City officials, education board members, potential partners. They'd researched our programs thoroughly, interviewed our students and teachers, reviewed our financial records. Your work is exactly what this city needs, the council member said. Authentic, effective, community-focused. We'd like to discuss a significant funding partnership. They offered grants, facilities, support staff, everything we'd need to expand citywide. What would you call the expanded program? Someone asked. Thought about it. About my grandfather's letter. About the building that now bore our family name for the right reasons. The Monroe Initiative, I said. To honor the legacy of what philanthropy should be. For the first time in my life, my last name didn't feel like a weight. Felt like mine. Something I could define on my own terms. The memorial reception happened at my grandfather's estate. I almost didn't go, but the lawyer insisted. There were documents to sign, final details to address. I arrived late, stayed near the back. Watched my family perform their grief for the society crowd. Marissa found me near the garden entrance. Her makeup was perfect, but her eyes were hard. You think you won, she hissed, voice low. You think this makes you better than me? I looked at her. Really looked at her. She seemed smaller than I remembered. Desperate. No, Marissa, I said calmly. I just stopped playing your game. Everything I worked for is destroyed. My reputation, my engagement, my future. Because of you. No, because of your choices. All lies. I just refused to let you bury me with them. Her lip trembled. For a moment she looked young, frayed, like she finally understood it was over. He left you everything that mattered, she whispered. The building, the endowment, his respect. What did I get? Money that's already being seized in the investigation. I didn't answer. There was nothing to say. She walked away, and I watched her go. No satisfaction, no triumph, just relief that I was finally free. The fallout continued for months. Marissa's fiancé left, moved to another state. The charity dissolved completely. My uncle's company faced its own investigations. My parents, who'd stood silently through my exile, now stood silently through Marissa's downfall. They didn't reach out to me, didn't apologize, just faded further into their social circle, pretending everything was fine. I didn't gloat, didn't give interviews about the scandal, didn't try to publicly clear my name. I just kept building. We moved into the Monroe Foundation building. 3 floors of bright studios, classroom space, gallery areas. Students filled the rooms with color and life and possibility. That's what real power looks like. Not loud, not vengeful, just quiet, steady, undeniable. The kids didn't care about my family drama. They cared about having a safe space to create, about having teachers who believed in them, about being seen. That was all that mattered. A final letter arrived 6 weeks after the memorial, delivered by my grandfather's lawyer, sealed with instructions to give it to me privately. I opened it alone in my office, late at night after the students had gone home. Tessa, if you're reading this, I'm gone. And you've probably discovered what I left you. I hope you understand why I structured it this way. Why I couldn't simply change the will openly. The family would have fought it, challenged it, torn apart what I wanted you to have. This way it's clean, protected. Worse, I misjudged you. I thought obedience meant strength. I thought maintaining appearances was more important than truth. I was wrong. You are the only one who understood what integrity actually means. The only one who chose principle over comfort. Your grandmother would be proud. I wish I'd told you that while I could still say it to your face. Use this gift well. Build something that matters. And forgive an old man who learned his lesson too late. With respect and regret, grandfather. I cried for the first time in months. Not from loss but from release. 1 year later, I stand in the new art center's glass atrium, watching afternoon sunlight stream across the space. 30 students work on their projects. Paintings cover the walls. Clay sculptures dry on shelves. Photography students discuss composition in the corner. The Monroe Initiative serves over 200 students now. We've partnered with schools across the district. Every program is fully funded, sustainable, growing. Reporters occasionally reach out, asking for comments about my family's downfall, about the scandal, about being cut from the will only to receive something more valuable. I always say the same thing. No comment. My work speaks for itself. Because the real revenge wasn't proving them wrong. Wasn't watching Marissa's world collapse. Wasn't even receiving my grandfather's final acknowledgement. The real revenge was this. Living freely, building honestly, creating something meaningful without needing their approval. I'd spent so many years trying to belong at that dinner table. Trying to earn their respect. Trying to be enough. Now I didn't need any of it. A student calls my name, excited to show me her finished painting. I walk over, smiling, leaving the past exactly where it belongs. Behind me, silent, finally at peace.